so much. I love you so much. I love you so much. I love you so much.
Hello, all you positive heads. Welcome to a very special episode dedicated to none other than you, the P-heads themselves. I am your P-head enthusiast and hostess for the day, Alexa Hauser. I have been blessed to have the experience of helping out with Positive Head social media for the better part of a year. And through my digital interactions, I began to realize, as did Brandon, that we have some incredible beings listening to this show who are taking the information that Brandon puts out through the podcast and using it to transform their lives and create wonderful things. You listeners are all a huge, huge part of the life force that propels this show forward through time and space, and we think it's time to bring forth some of you beautiful reflections and delve a little deeper into this collection of energy that is the Positive Head community. So as we shine the spotlight on our listeners, what we'll have them do is share their stories of how they attracted Positive Head into their life, the transformation it's facilitated for them, and what they're focused on creating now that they're in a more positive headspace. Also, this episode of the Positive Head podcast is being brought to you thanks to the support of Gaia. If you're not familiar, Gaia is the go-to source for streaming consciousness content online. And you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. Check it out. Hello, all you positive heads. On this week's P-Head Posse episode, our guest is Positive Head listener Ili Lagos. Ili is a special education teacher, writer, musician, metaphysical junkie, and self-proclaimed manifester. Hi, Ili. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Of course. I'm really happy that this is finally happening because I know that you have been one of the people who every time we've put out for this segment, you've popped up, and it's taken up until now to bring you on here, but I'm really excited. It's long overdue.
Yes, I'm really excited too. I knew it was going to happen.
Yeah, you're a manifester. You knew it.
That's right. I knew it. I was like, it just takes a little time.
Yeah, it just takes some time. Well, why don't you tell us about yourself? Tell us about, your story and how you've what your journey's been like up until this point.
Like a lot of these stories go, for me, it started with a heartbreak and a breakup, and so a spiritual journey began. I guess I would have to say it started when I read the book, You Are a Badass. Have you ever heard of that book?
By Jen Sincero? Yes. Love it.
Yes. It was around Christmas time about a year and a half ago. And I just needed something. And so I just kept reading that book, and which led me to YouTube, which, as you guys all know, it can be a real big rabbit hole. And so I started thinking a lot about the law of attraction, because that was one of the main points in the book that kind of helped me kind of figure out what I wanted in life. And so I started watching YouTube videos on the law of attraction, which led me to Abraham-Hicks. And I know that on Positive Head podcast, Brandon likes to give us a couple of clips here and there about Abraham-Hicks. And so I got really addicted to Abraham-Hicks, which led me to Bashar, which is another entity or channeled being. And the one thing about Bashar was it was hard to find YouTube videos on him. And so I would watch YouTube videos on whatever they had on YouTube about Bashar. And then Positive Head popped up. And it was the episode where Brandon talks about Bashar's 14 Principles. And so I listened to that. It was around Thanksgiving last year. And I listened to that podcast and was not only mesmerized by Brandon's awesome voice, but just the information that was given that particular podcast, which it led me to Positive Heads. And so, I just one rabbit hole after another. And and then I was brought to Positive Heads, which brought me a couple of pen pals in the private group, and just, I mean, I can't even describe all the aha moments that I had listening to the show, and so thus entering the Positive Head group Posse.
Yeah, and it is quite a posse. We have so many just amazing people, and I was talking to I don't know who I was talking to, but I was talking today to someone about how, like, it feels like all of us right now at the time of this recording as well are just so activated too. Like, if you look in the group, it just feels like everybody is so activated with like their purpose and their mission and like just like things that they're excited about building. And it's really cool to, like, I was thinking today, just really cool how we have that group, which if you're listening to this and you're not in the group, what are you doing? It's Positive Heads with an S. Get in there. It's so special. It's so awesome. But I was just thinking, wow, it's just so cool. We it's like we're all working on these little projects, you know, to like help and heal the world and ourselves, and that we all have each other as support. Like, isn't how amazing is that right now at this time, you know, when we all need it so much. So and it reminds me of how, like, one of the things that I've loved so far on my journey over the years is I remember one podcast led me to think, you know what, I need to see myself as a spiritual scientist. And, you know, because there are moments where you kind of question all this information that you're gaining from people from all over the place, all over the world. And just like the podcasts that we listen to, they all have kind of like a very experimental aspect to it. Like, you can test these theories and you can test these things, and you can, you know, open yourself up to so many possibilities. And I think that was the biggest thing that Positive Heads gave me, was the sense of possibility and hope and, you know, healing. But also that there's so many different ways of looking at the world, and they're all true. Yeah, that we don't have to combat each other, like to make one of our views right and the other wrong. It's like we can all coexist with our own view of the world, because it's not a choice. We all have our own view of the world, whether we understand that or not, you know, like we all come at it from our own perspective. And like, but I know what you mean. It's like, hope that we can all truly coexist and find our own path, and that we don't have to go down any path just because the world has done it before. Right.
Yeah.
That's us. I feel the same. And, well, speaking of, like, what else have you say you're a metaphysical junkie. So what kind of cool metaphysical things are you into? I'm curious.
Oh, I'm basically everything. I mean, I wear crystals, crystal necklaces.
Yes.
I took a Reiki course online, and so I'm technically a Reiki master. I haven't been practicing, but I need to. What else? I'm really into astrology. I think I've always been into astrology, and that's another thing that kind of sparked some continued interest, was that if I was to reflect on my past and being a child, I was always intrigued by interesting things like astrology or tarot reading or fortune telling or, you know, entities, spirit guides. I mean, all these things to me are like just little morsels of life that just make life interesting. And it's like, you can believe it or you can't believe it, but if it makes you happy, or if it tickles you, if it enriches your life, then why not? And so I can't think of anything else. Oh, Abraham-Hicks.
Love Abraham.
Like, just everything. Lately, sorry.
Oh, no, continue. Go ahead.
I was going to say, lately I've been really into Dr. Joe Dispenza. Are you familiar with him?
You know what's funny is this is now like the fourth or fifth time someone has brought this name to me. So I guess that's a sign.
Yes, you have to read.
Yeah. What's he all about?
He's basically a neuroscientist who the best way to say it is he basically proves the law of attraction through science.
Oh,
that you can literally change the way your reality is by changing your personality.
Wow.
And that we're basically like these vessels of trapped emotions, and that whenever we have an emotion, whether it's a sad emotion or a happy emotion, it's usually connected to the past. And that if you could change the way you think about things consistently, you can change your reality. And so he has a lot of proof, like scientific proof. He's also in cahoots with Greg Braden, who is another, I call them spiritual scientists, because they basically demystify spirituality by using science.
Yeah, we had him on the show, I think, right? Didn't we have him on the show recently?
Greg Braden, yes.
Yeah.
We had Greg Braden on the show. Yes. So they're kind of like, there's a trifecta. I think his name is Bruce Lipton, Joe Dispenza, and then Greg Braden. So I've been really into him lately because it's, because of the science behind it. And they're also connected and have worked with Heart Math, which the Heart Math Institute, which talks about coherence with the heart and the brain, and how the heart has more electromagnetic energy than the brain does. And that when you have heart coherence, you're better able to affect your reality in a positive way.
And why is that?
I think it has to do with the electromagnetic field.
Oh,
something about the power behind the electromagnetic field. I don't know too much. I'm just delving into it now, but
yeah, I've actually watched a couple of TED Talks, I think, or like talks that Heart Math did, and I think actually what I'm remembering is, it's like when you are your heart, the scan, like the wave should look very even, and like, but normally all our heart what do you call it, like an echogram or whatever?
Yeah.
Echograph, it looks very erratic, like up and down and all over the place, and not symmetrical, and just very like spiked all over the place. And so when they were doing all these demonstrations about how to bring someone back into resonance, and and how what that can do for you, and so maybe when you are back in resonance, that's when all of your power is like magnetized back to you, right? Or like you're totally within your body, like you're totally in control of your power. Heart math is really interesting. And I love that you're bringing like up like spirit science, essentially, because like we need so much more of this, and we need this to be more visible, because these people already are visible, but it's like I'm looking forward to it becoming even more visible and validated and taken into consideration.
I think what's interesting about this, because he even says, Joe Dispenza even says, he's like, it's come to the point where it's not enough to know. We have to do something about it. We have to become more, cognizant. And I mean, I just think so many times when I go to work or when I'm driving somewhere, I think how much more powerful can we all become if we all start thinking, in a more open-hearted way, as opposed to, the the cutthroat kind of corporate, or just me first, survival of the fittest. What would happen if we all kind of knew that we're all co-creators and we do have this power to manifest things for the greater good, and because I think it's Abraham-Hicks that talks about how, one person that's in alignment can be more powerful than millions that aren't. But what if a few of us started becoming more, co-conspirators, co-creators?
Yeah.
I think it really starts with ourselves. If we can create a happier reality within ourselves, and a more peaceful and a more loving and a more open, that could open doors for others, because then we attract others that are like-minded, and we just eventually attract each other. And, if we could be more deliberate, and collaborative, but, at the same time, I think that's what's happening now. I think we are getting to that point where we're like, kind of like, we're all in this together. We are connected. We are one. What affects me affects you in a good way or in a bad way. And, is just like, I feel just like we're getting there. We're getting more deliberate. We're getting even more vulnerable. I've noticed that for me, because of, for example, I meditate every morning, and I try to meditate in the afternoon, and I try to get into alignment and kind of be that open vessel of love and joy, and try to attract that in my life. But at the same time, I do it because, one, it feels good, but I know that whatever I'm going to attract is going to be beneficial to me, and vice versa. And I just want to be beneficial to others as well. But it's really interesting how people are becoming more vulnerable and more open and more, like even something as simple as like Brene Brown, with her, she talks about shame and vulnerability. And that's like a buzzword these days. And which is awesome, because, there's so many people, and I'm sure a lot of positive heads out there have always felt kind of isolated, because they are the sensitive person. They are the person that loves and that, that feels what other people feel, that we are, we're like the empaths, or we're the light workers, or, we're the open people out there. And now it's becoming less woo woo, and more like, well, it makes sense. We need more empathy. We need more coherence. We need more collaboration.
Definitely. And I love Brene Brown. Actually, that was one of the people that popped into my world when I was having my awakening, which was kind of scary at the time for me. But she really actually my parents were who aren't really into any of this stuff very much, but they were the ones who were I think you're talking about what this woman's talking about, what you're feeling. And it's amazing that there are these, there's so many people to talk about who are really paving the way for all of these, emotions that weren't talked about before, or weren't seen as valid, or something to be kind of, acknowledged, shame is I feel like that's such a new thing in a way. But well, I have a question, just because I keep reading, I'm sitting here and I keep looking back over your intro, and something keeps catching my eye. You're a special education teacher. Is that currently?
Yes.
And what is that like for you? I feel like that must be so rewarding, or you must learn I don't know. I'm just so curious. What is that like for you?
Well, it's my first year being a special ed teacher, and it's very challenging. I work with children with behavioral disorders or emotional disturbance. So they're like the rare cases of kids that can't function in a general education classroom.
Got it.
speaking of energy, it's a lot of energy and a lot of resistance and a lot of, so it can be very, very challenging, but I know that it is rewarding. It is rewarding, but it's one of those jobs where you see it gradually.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just like a regular general ed teacher, but ours is a little more gradual that you see the progress. But it is rewarding. But if anything, it teaches me about the human condition for sure. It teaches me about it's almost like a heightened view of humans.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like it's more intense. Like it's more
intense. It's very intense, but at the same time, it's very rewarding because I see them as love. I see them as these beams of light that just need guidance, and they just need love. I mean, if anything they need, it's love, and we all need love.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. And I'm just, have you ever thought about tapping with them, or like has tapping ever come up?
Oh, no, but that's actually a really good idea. I do meditate with them. With them in the morning. And
that's awesome.
That was probably one of the reasons why I got the job, because at the interview she asked me, what would you do? What would your morning look like with your kids? And I said, we'd meditate, and the first thing we do is meditate, because the thing about behavioral students and kids, a lot of these kids, they have PTSD, and they have, they're like in a constant state of flight or fight. Mm-hmm. And so my main goal with them, and I'm gonna, look into tapping for sure.
Yeah.
My main goal with them is to keep them in the moment enough to where any kind of triggers are minimized. And then that's when they can learn. Because with my class, they are so behind academically because of their behavior. Because, some of them have ADHD, some have ADD, they have these things. And so it's just really hard for them to be in the moment. And so that's why meditating with them, I know, is going to prove to be so much better than what they had previously, which was nothing. But it's a gradual thing, and in a world where everything is so immediate, it's so quick for everybody to panic and be like, this isn't working, but it's a gradual process. But the meditation actually helps them. At first there was some resistance, because they are kids. I have 4th and 5th graders, and but now they crave it. They want it. Yes, Lagos, we have to meditate. I was like, yep, we sure do.
That's awesome. That's so great to hear. That's really awesome to hear that, like, you think you were hired like because of that, because I feel like I hear so much that, like schools aren't allowing enough of that. So it's amazing that, they're making way for that. And because it is just so important, and especially children, it's like, they have so much energy as it is. It's like keeping them in one place for all that time, it can be, I'm sure, like hard for them. So that's amazing. They must love you. And yeah, I would definitely, because I'm just seeing it more and more being introduced in schools, like over and over again. And, and it is just like tapping is just something that they can do at their desk or wherever they are. Like they don't need anything but their hands, so it's,
right.
So definitely.
I'll have to check into that, because we have glitter bottles, but that's more cumbersome.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
so tapping would and I didn't even think about it, but that's good. No, I'm glad. I have to write that down.
Yeah. And I'll send you, there's actually like a cartoon called, it's like a little animated cartoon where with every day of the week, where there's like a sing along, and these kids are 4th and 5th grade, but there's all kinds of resources for kids
They'll
that
still
are
like it.
Okay. Yeah. Then I'll send it to you when we get off here. It's cool. It's like a little tapping sing along where you tap and you sing. But, well, awesome. Well, what is one thing that you think would benefit every positive head to know or understand as they continue on their own journey?
I would have to say, let things go.
Oh, that's a good one.
Just let things go. That you don't have to, like, for me, my biggest thing for me was self-love. When I went through my spiritual journey, when I first started on my spiritual journey, it was actually the opposite of what you would think a spiritual journey would do. I was in a relationship, and she was like a mirror to me. And what I mean by that is it became very tumultuous, and we were verbally abusive to each other, and we were just mean to each other. And, we said a lot of things to each other that, if we think about it, we wouldn't have done it, and, but it was a reflection of how I saw myself. And then I realized that I needed to love myself. I wasn't loving myself, and that it wasn't selfish to love yourself. So for me, I made it an effort to, like, put selfies on Instagram and write the hashtag love yourself, like, do things that are uncomfortable, and kind of break from those limiting beliefs that I had. And I say, first, always start out with self-love, and then read You Are a Badass.
Yes, it's such a good book. Yeah, it's definitely a great resource. You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero is a great book. And there's another one, right? Like You Are a Badass with Money or something like that.
Yes, you're a badass at making money.
At making money. Yeah. She's
We're
a great...
plugging her stuff.
Yeah. Well, she's a great author. I don't know if a lot of people know about her, but that book, that book is really, like, I think she thanks Abraham in the credits, like, or they're in the wherever you thank people.
Yeah. I want to tell you a synchronicity story.
Yes. Tell me.
Okay. So after my breakup, I didn't have a job. I was on sabbatical. I had quit my job, and I hadn't worked for a while. I had saved some money, so I was good financially, but I didn't have a job. And so in the summer, one of my friends texted me and was like, "Hey, do you want to be an aide, a TA, which is a teacher's aide?" Prior to this job that I have now, I was an aide for the same position. And I was like, yeah, sure. Why not? It was like no big deal. I was like, okay, here I am manifesting opportunities. And so she's like, okay, well, I'll text you later or whatever. So in the meantime, I went to Florida to visit some friends, and in Florida, she was like, well, are you going to be available on this date or whatever? And I'll be like, yeah, I will. But from Florida, I was going to fly to Puerto Rico because my mom lives in Puerto Rico. And
Right.
so I was going to go visit her for her birthday, and it was going to be a surprise. And so when I went to Puerto Rico, I surprised her. It was awesome. Then I get a call from my friend, and she's like, "Hey, are you available to interview for this TA position?" And I was like, "Yeah." And so we FaceTimed, and I got the job. And so I wasn't going to start until I got back. And so they sent me paperwork and an email that said, "Oh, you need all these things." And one of them was my Social Security card. And I was like, "Oh man, I don't even know where that thing is."
Who has that?
So I call Texas, my roommate, and I ask her if she can find me to look in my jewelry box or wherever I usually stash it, see if she can find my Social Security card. And so while I'm talking to her on the phone, my mom goes, "Wait a minute." Okay, my mom's in Puerto Rico. She's
Right.
like, "Wait a minute." So my roommate doesn't find it. I get off the phone. The next day, my mom comes my mom comes out of her, I was staying at my aunt's house, and she comes to my aunt's house and she's like, look what I found. And it's my social security card.
What? Wait, so you were in Puerto Rico. You were visiting her.
Yes. I was visiting her in Puerto Rico.
How did she have it?
Well, I used to live with her a couple of years ago, and I had moved, and I guess I left my stuff with her stuff.
It's almost like you went there to get it.
I went there to get it because, Social Securities are hard to get.
I know. Well, that's why when you said that, I was like bringing up all memories of times that I've needed it. I'm like, I have no idea where that is, and it's so hard to get. So, oh my gosh.
So I had to be in Puerto. That's what to me is a proof of the cooperative components.
Yes.
It was an impulse to surprise my mother in Puerto Rico. Before I left for Puerto Rico, I get a phone call, I get this interview, and then it turns out she has something that I need.
Yes, I love that. That's such a way. That's such an. Just proof that things are always working out for you, that you're like always on the right path, like wherever you're going, even if you're delayed or you think you're supposed to be somewhere, but you get detoured, it's like, ask yourself what is there for you, because there's gotta be something there. Like you're always going in the direction of what you need, right? Of what you want, what you need. So that, I love that. I love that story. That's great.
There's so many little ones that you could, I could.
Yeah, you got any other good ones?
I guess one. Okay, so this is like early on, when you're starting to practice this kind of thing, and you're kind of, you're eager to look for every little thing. But one of the first ones that I noticed was I was driving home, and I lived down the street from my father, and so sometimes we have dinner together, and I got home and I was like, man, I really want a beer. I really want a beer. Like I usually don't want beer, but I was like, I had an okay day. I want a beer. And then my dad calls and he goes, hey, have you eaten yet? And I was like, no. And he's like, you want to come over and eat? And I was like, yeah. Do you have beer? And he's like, yeah, no, why don't you go get some? And I'm like, okay, yeah, well, what kind do you want? Well, he kind of likes generic beer, and I'm kind of snooty, and I like craft beer.
Yeah. And
so he was like, oh, just get, like a Michelob Ultra or one of those, light beers. And I was like, no. So I was walking out of my house, and I think about going to the store, and then I'm like, nah, never mind. I'll just deal. So I go to have dinner with him. Lo and behold, he looks in his fridge and he has this really good, 12 or 18 packs of really good craft beer. And he's like, I'm not going to drink all this, so you can take it. I was like, yes!
Oh my gosh. The universe delivers. I love that.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the simple things,
It is. And sometimes it's just the joy of it.
Yeah. Like sometimes
it was enough.
What'd you say?
I said it was enough. It was enough to just for that to happen. I didn't even want the beer after that. It was just enough. It was such a satisfying moment.
Totally. To realize that sometimes it really does feel like things are appearing out of thin air, even though there are reasons that they're appearing, like it was in your dad's fridge and whatever. But sometimes it really does feel like I just asked for that and then it just came out of that place. It's insane. But that's great. Yeah. So sometimes my favorite manifestations are honestly just the simple small ones, because they're just like, yep, it's working. The universe is always working.
Always working.
Always working. Well, Ili, do you have anything else you feel super called to share before we wrap things up here?
No, I think it's good.
Said your piece, shared your stuff. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your resources and wisdom and stories of synchronicity. This was really lovely, and it was awesome to finally connect.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And if people, or I don't know if you want people contacting you, but if people do want to reach out to you, can they?
Yeah, they can.
Okay.
Just, on the positive, join the positive private group. I'm always on there.
Yep. She's always on there. She's super active in there. So get in there if you haven't. And until next time, Ili, it was great talking to you. Have a beautiful night.
All right. You too.
Bye. That's it for this week's episode. If you're a listener with a story to share and are interested in being featured on a future episode of this special series, you can email me at alexa@positivehead.com. Also, if you're craving more consciousness elevating content, be sure to check out Gaia, which is the go-to source for streaming consciousness content on the web, where you can stream an incredible 7,000 plus exclusive videos covering 5,000 years of wisdom. As you all hear Brandon constantly say, it's a daily conscious effort to maintain an elevated vibration. And if you're looking to journey deep down the rabbit hole to do so, then Gaia is the best place we know of to do it. Period. And you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. Check it out. Otherwise, tune in next Friday for another P-Head Posse episode. And until then, as Brandon always says, journey well.